Welcome, everyone, to another session of TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we are going to be taking a look at the delayed delivery function of point of sale. It's a mode that's available with your standard point of sale function as part of the basic package. And probably the biggest question I receive over the years is why people would even use a delayed delivery option. What does it meant to be used for? So today we're going to be taking a look at that. Now, as always, if you have any questions regarding today's content, feel free to go ahead and plug that into the questions box as part of the GoToMeeting toolbar over there on the side. And I will do my best to answer those as I see them come in. And let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first things first, when it comes to delayed delivery, in case you're wondering what a delayed delivery even is to begin with, we're going to go jump into a quick point of sale session. And part of the delayed delivery, or part of the point of sale, is this delayed delivery mode that you'll see here in the mode options as part of the standard point of sale window. If you have customized your point of sale screen and it looks different than this, and then that's still there, great. If not, not a big deal. Basically, modes are different ways that you can accomplish certain types of transactions at point of sale in AIM. So when you go into a delayed delivery mode, you'll notice it comes up and lets us know that we are actually in delayed delivery mode. And anything that you process as part of a delayed delivery is not going to be considered out of the store right away like it would a normal sales invoice. Basically, it's going to be still inside the store until you ultimately turn around and mark that transaction as being quote unquote delivered, which is usually done outside of point of sale. Outside the point of sale, let me exit out of here. And if we go into modules and daily posting, you'll notice that there is a delivery option in here. And basically, when you do a delivery, that would close the open delayed delivery. So this is very handy if, let's say, you are an appliance store, or you sell large products. Maybe you sell grand pianos, maybe you sell furniture, maybe you sell things that the customer wants to come in and to make a purchase of, and you're going to ultimately figure out when is the best time to have that delivered. In the meantime, the idea with a delayed delivery is you don't necessarily have to have a serial number specified at the time of the transaction. Now, basically, if there are some things like, let's say, a grand piano, like the customer wants that specific grand piano, you're probably going to put that serial number right on the delayed delivery. But if they're just purchasing, let's say, a new stove or something like that, just as long as it's in the same model line in your warehouse area, you might have X number of those stoves in storage. And if you were to specify a serial number at the time of the sale, it's quite possible that that serial number, Murphy's Law dictates, is all the way in back, and you have to move 100 other units just to get to that specific one. So when you do a delayed delivery, you don't have to specify the serial number until when you get to this last step of doing the actual delivery portion of it. Now, one other big thing that I see people inquire on is what's the difference between a delayed delivery and a delivery ticket? Because as part of the regular sales invoice, if I hop back into point of sale here and I go into the functions menu, one of the main functions here is delivery info. And when I click on that, it's going to ask me for a delivery date and a name and an address and all that stuff. But a delivery ticket is not the same thing as a delayed delivery. A delayed delivery specifically is a type of transaction, whereas a delivery ticket can technically be done part and parcel with most any other transaction type. You don't have to do a delayed delivery to do a delivery ticket. The delivery ticket simply specifies the details of the potential delivery down the road. So the date of it, who the name of the person's going to be that the delivery person's going to reach out to and contact. Most of those kinds of details are specific to the delivery ticket itself. Now, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. A few things that you may want to consider before we jump headfirst into a delayed delivery. I'm going to go ahead and point out a couple of system variables that you may want to consider. So we're going to go into maintenance, general, and system variables. And I'm just going to type in the word delay when we come into system variables. First and foremost, delayed sale. This is the major controlling point of delayed deliveries. We can see here that this is going to look for some kind of numeric value, typically a 1 or a 2. If this has a 1, then a delayed delivery is considered a sale when it is entered. So immediately it's going to hit your books for bookkeeping purposes as these items are sold. Whereas if you have a 2 up in the current value, they're going to be considered sales when they are delivered. So not at the time that you key in the delayed delivery, but at the time when you flag it as delivered. That is the big difference between 1 and 2 here as far as your books are concerned. So if you do it as a 2 and you take a down payment on that, that's basically what it's going to be considered. It's going to be considered a delayed delivery deposit against the transaction from a bookkeeping standpoint. So just kind of keep that in mind. And for what it's worth, if we go ahead and take a look in the ledger area, so we go into maintenance and ledger and system categories, there are a plethora of categories in here that are all about deposits received. So if we take a look in here, you'll notice that there's options in here for items on layaway, special orders, service deposits, etc. And specifically, the system category 1902, reference number 1, is going to be looking for deposits on delayed delivery, so items on delayed delivery. So if you have that set up as a 2 and you are taking a payment against it, that's where it's going to hit. It's going to look at that reference 1 of system category 1902. Getting back to the variables, every delayed delivery has 2 dates, the date of the transaction and the potential date of the delivery, which is always subject to change. You can always change it at any given time. Now, there's 2 variables that control that. The first one is delayed sale date. And if this is left blank, as we can see here, it says that there is going to be a required delivery date. Otherwise, any text that you type in there is going to basically be printed in place of or in lieu of a date that you have for the delivery date, the promise date, if you leave that promise date blank. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. If you would like to require a date and you'd like it to default out a certain number of days, then the system variable delay days will push that date out X number of days from the current date. So just keep that in mind as well. And then 2 others, delayed sale requires paid. If you need that to be basically paid in full, then you would want to change this to be a Y. It says, you can see here, this variable controls whether a delayed delivery sale must be paid in full before delivery. Enter a Y to require full payment before delivery, or an N to allow delivery with a balance. And again, this applies only to delayed deliveries that are considered sales when delivered. So keep that in mind. This is dependent on, back on this variable, this being a 2. The last one is delayed sale trade. And basically, if you were to be taking in any kind of trade-in against the delayed delivery, this controls how these trade-ins are going to be posted. So again, there's certain contingencies to be in place here. It says this only applies if your delayed deliveries are set up to be sales at the time of delivery, and that delayed sale ones being a 2. So if that is a 2, this applies. Enter a 0 to post at the time of entering the delayed delivery, and enter a 1 to post during the delivery. So in other words, if you want the trade-in to be available to receive immediately if these are going to be considered sales at the time of delivery, you would make this be a 0. And if you don't want that to be able to be brought in as inventory, in other words, to receive that trade-in until the delivery is completed, you make that be a 1. So just kind of keep that in mind. There are a couple of variables that play into this whole delayed delivery concept. When you do a delayed delivery, let's hop back into a quick sale here, and you do a delayed delivery. By default, one of the buttons that you'll see appear in addition to it going into delayed delivery mode is this button down here, a button that lets you change the delivery date or the promise date. When you click on that, that will bring up a little option here where you can put in a specific delivery date. So let's say we want this to be delivered at the end of the month. We could go ahead and pick a date off of the calendar there, and that will then show up here on the delivery transaction, the delayed delivery sale, as a specific delivery date. Again, that is actually subject to change. You don't necessarily have to abide by that delivery date. A question that, or actually one of these great uses that I like to recommend, if you are a firearm store and you're selling a firearm that requires, I believe in some states, what's known as a cool down period. So they come in, they make a purchase, but they can't actually take it home with them for X number of days. Delayed deliveries are your go-to type of transaction because you can record the transaction, and the delivery date in this case could be basically the first day from which they can come back and they can actually take their purchase home with them. So you'd be wanting to use this in that respect. And you'll also want to make sure that that delayed sale is set to a 2 in that case, so that that way it's considered a sale at the time that it's delivered, so that that way it affects your bounce appropriately. So just something else there to keep in mind. Now, let's go ahead and do one. I'm going to go ahead and pull up an actual customer account here. Let's pick on my good old buddy, Mike Anderson. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a 2SP flute here, since I am in a music system. I'm going to go ahead and just take a payment against that. You can see it's coming up for the full subtotal, the tax, and the amount. And we'll go ahead and let's see, we did that as of the delayed delivery. Yep, right. Perfect. Let's go ahead and we'll just, for the keeping it simple, we'll just say it's paid by cash. And then we'll go ahead and finalize that. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and print this to the screen so you can kind of see what a delayed delivery looks like here. There we go. As my computer catches up to me. All right, so a delayed delivery invoice has its own type of invoice type back in the system comments. So if you are a frequent follower of TriTech University webinars, you recall that I talked about system comments being where you can go in and you can set up basically any specific terms or statements or things that you want to have print on your transactions. So a delayed delivery is its own specific kind. So if you want to have any specific terms on the delayed delivery invoice, this is where they would print out. Of course, all the rest of the details there are fairly standard. The big thing here with a delayed delivery sale, I'm going to go ahead and grab my good old highlighter here. Up at the top, I need to get my webinar or my webcam window out of the way. I need to change back to a thing. Get my face out of the way. And let me get rid of the marks that I've already made. So you probably have already seen it by now at this point, but right here, the delivery date. So basically, that's going to be where the date's going to show up for the estimated delivery date. So that'll be right there. If you had just text in that delayed sale date variable, that's where the text would show up. If you left the promise date empty. If you required a promise date and you didn't specify one, before you can close out, it will pop up and ask you to fill in a delivery date. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. All right. Again, hopefully that's making sense. Let me know if it does not. Let's go ahead now and take a look at some of these things that you may find really handy with transacting or processing delayed sales. First and foremost, reports. In your reports underneath inventory, and if I remember correctly, it is sold inventory. There is going to be a report. Maybe it's actually underneath the current inventory. And I always have fun. There we go, delayed deliveries. So you've got delayed deliveries, and then you've got delayed deliveries by category. Delayed deliveries are probably going to be your go-to report if you are going to be making use of these transaction types. You'll notice when you run this report, you have two options for the delivery type, either items not delivered or items delivered. So items not delivered is going to be a great way to make sure you're staying on top of these open delayed deliveries. And then from there, you can specify any expected promise date range or delivery date range or any other details that you want to run this report by. Let's just go ahead and do today through the end of the month. And you'll see it comes up here and lets me know there's one record available that's going to show up on this report. You also have the option of including items with no promise date or including non-inventory items. Let's just go ahead and throw this up on the screen here again so you can kind of see what this would look like. And this is basically going to let us see the invoice, the date of that invoice, the location and account and customer info, the estimated delivery date, the SKUs that were on that delivery, the description, and then the price. So kind of the items that are on delayed deliveries at this point. You'll notice that at this point, the SKU, which is a serialized SKU, is not yet specifying a particular serial number. So that's important. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at one other thing here. I'm going to go into our inventory menu. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this item 2SP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the details here. So if we take a look at the details of this item, we're going to see that we have a quantity on hand of 2, but a quantity available of 1 and a quantity out of 1. And while we're in that quantity out of 1, I'll go ahead and hit F6, and we'll see that it is only showing 1 because we have 1 out on delayed delivery. For what it's worth, delayed deliveries will show up, if I remember correctly, on physical inventory counts. So just kind of keep that in mind. That you will still be expected to count these items because technically they're still underneath your roof when they're on delayed delivery. They are just not available for sale. So keep that in mind as well. Getting the questions box out of the way here. So that's something to kind of consider there as well. Now, let's say you need to tweak the details of that delayed delivery prior to the delivery actually occurring. If we take a look in the utilities menu here underneath inventory, if I remember correctly, it is underneath the inventory menu. Maybe it's not. I'm just going to use the drop downs because my old-fashioned eyes have an easier time following these. Here we go. So you have an option underneath the customer utilities menu to go in and extend this delayed delivery. There's also an option here for swapping delayed delivery serials. So if you do specify a serial number ahead of time and you need to change it, the swap delayed delivery sales will let you do that. But let's say you need to change that delivery date. You can come in and you can extend that delayed delivery. We'll go ahead and we'll pull up Mr. Anderson. And there is the delayed delivery. So we will go ahead and select it. And that will bring up a little window here, basically seeing that we've got this delivery of the 2SP flute. The serial number is not yet known. And up here at the top right, we can see it's got the original delivery date of 5/29. Let's say that that's actually going to happen a little bit earlier So we can make that be the 28th. And then we will go ahead and we would save that. And you can see it's just got a little note here letting you know that if you do have any items already in red, they are basically already delivered. So just letting you know on that. If you've done some deliveries, but not others on that same transaction, they'll show up here in red. So we'll go ahead and hit save on that. And then that will give you the option of course, printing a new receipt for that. If you'd like to have that for your records, your physical printed records, you'll see it's now showing that the delivery date is now going to be 5/28 instead of 5/29. So now it's time to actually mark this as delivered. And of course, you're probably not doing this for just a flute, something that you could pick up and walk out the door with, but that's what we're using for our demo purposes here. Let's go back to modules and daily posting and delivery, and we'll take a look at how this looks. So at this point, pull up the account, and there's the delayed delivery. And there is the flute. Now, basically what you're going to see here is it's going to have this quantity of what we are expecting to deliver, the SKU and description and the price, if there was any discount on it. And we don't have to do this as of the 28th. Basically, this date would be officially the one on the records of when the delivery actually was finalized. So hypothetically, let's say we ultimately even did it one day earlier than the 28th, which was always, remember, an estimated date. So we'll say that's as of the 27th. Now, over here, you'll see there is a quantity delivered. We can go ahead and put that up to a 1. And then at that point, it's going to ask us to select the serial number out on this delivery. It's going to show you whatever you have in stock. We'll go ahead and we'll check mark that first one there. We'll hit OK. That will load the serial right in there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll hit save. And that will then close out that delayed delivery. So basically what that's doing is it's kind of going start to finish. This is essentially just a sales invoice over time, if that makes sense. I know one question that came up afterwards during one of these webinars was, well, what happens if you happen to, and I'll go ahead and print out the delivery invoice here just so you can kind of see what that looks like. What happens if you start putting something on one type of mode and it winds up needing to be on a different type of mode? Like if you started out as a sales invoice and it needs to go in, it needs to be switched to a delayed delivery. Not a problem at all. There is technically a new function in version 12 that lets you change the mode on line items. So we'll take a look at that here in just a moment. But here's the final delivery invoice, marking everything as having been delivered. And of course, there was no balance because it was paid in full. If your customers are charge customer types where they can carry that balance, then you may also still technically have an open balance on that delayed delivery invoice. Let's go hop into a point of sale really quick, and I'll pull up Mr. Anderson again just to kind of demonstrate this function that I was just describing. So let's say that we start out with something as a regular sale. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and do a trombone, if I remember correctly, or is this a trumpet? I think this is a trumpet. There we go. So let's say he actually wants that on a delayed delivery. If we take a look in the functions, and if I remember correctly, I've got this pretty much all the way at the far end of my functions menu here. But there's going to be a function in here for changing the item mode right here. So switch item modes. When I click on that, no items to switch modes. Let's go ahead and see if I can get this done here. All right. So that's basically the idea, though, is you can swap that out into a different mode. I'll probably have to go into that different mode. I actually have not tried this yet. So let's go back to home. And when we go to home, we'll go into delayed delivery mode. And now let's go back to that menu. And we'll click the switch item mode. If I remember where it is, there it is. So switch item mode. And it'll ask you, okay, so select which item do we want to switch to the delayed delivery. And it's going to show us what is already on all transactions and what kind of mode it's coming from. So we're going to pull this trumpet from the sales invoice into the delayed delivery. So we'll go ahead and check mark that. And we'll go ahead and click select, and you'll see it will now appear on the delayed delivery mode as part of the delayed delivery. And then the main will just be everything else that's going on with the point of sale and everything else. So I forget who asked that question originally. Hopefully you're in attendance here today, just so you could kind of see that in action. Katie is asking, can you switch a sales invoice to a proposal in version 12 as well, or is it just invoices to delayed deliveries? Yes, actually you can, Katie. So let's just do that really quick. Let's say that they want a quote on that trumpet purchase instead of it being a delayed delivery. So we'll go into proposal mode, just like we saw. So while we're in proposal mode now, and you'll see that appears right alongside all of the rest. Then we go back to that button for switching the item mode. And as long as we're on the proposal, you can see it says select item to switch to proposal. We'll pull it in this time off the delayed delivery and into the proposal. And that basically works for any of these modes. So you can see it's now showing up on the proposal instead of the delayed delivery. The delayed delivery is now empty. And in fact, when we go back to main, because there was nothing left on delayed delivery, that mode kind of goes away up there. So, but yeah, that works for approvals. Doesn't necessarily work for orders. Order is not really a mode per se. Orders are actually just a different type of form. So if someone needs to put something onto a special order, you would want to come in here into a special order and pull that in just as part of the special order. You'd actually wind up removing it off of the sales invoice portion and basically add it in as its own line item here into this special order for the customer. So yeah, basically any kind of mode, they can be swapped around, but special orders are kind of their own beast, so to speak, in addition to and kind of as part of point of sale, but because there's some extra details that go along with a special order. You can see, for example, here, if we were doing changing any kind of shipping details or putting any kind of customer PO on here, then yeah, there's basically extra details when it comes to special orders. Katie has a follow-up on that. Could you turn it into a proposal and then pull it into an order if you wanted? Yes, definitely. You'll notice as part of the order screen, you have the ability to pull in proposals from a proposal right into, a special order. So yep, definitely you can do that all day long there, Katie. Thank you so much for the questions. All right. So that's kind of the idea of delayed deliveries. So again, just to kind of summarize, they are another type of mode for point of sale. They act basically like a delayed sales invoice, and the delay in this case is just the customer receiving their product. So they're still more than likely paying for it right then and there. They're just not taking it home. They're either going to come back at a later time and pick it up, or you are actually going to do a delivery for them as part of that. And one thing I guess I'll just elaborate on in the case of those delivery tickets. Delivery tickets are in addition to not only delayed sales, but also all these other modes. So back again in the functions menu, when you do a delivery info, let's say that we were going to deliver something, we can come in and create a delivery ticket. This delivery ticket is kind of its own separate entity, if that makes sense. So you could specify a delivery date. Typically that would coincide with the estimated delivery date. You could then put in the customer details of where it's going to be shipped to, any special notes such as beware of the dog or flight of stairs or whatever it might be. Ultimately, when you save that, that will be its own special ticket as part of the rest of the history of this item. So out of point of sale, let me just jump out of here really quick. And yes, I'm exiting this transaction. So as part of modules and customers, you're going to notice a menu here all about delivery tickets. So right here on the back office menus, if we go just to the drop downs, you'll see modules and customers and delivery tickets. And the idea there is if you've added any at point of sale, you can view them here. You can also add them from scratch. And these are also printable. Underneath your reports, you will see a report in here for somewhere delivery ticket listings, if I remember correctly. There's so many reports, I don't remember exactly where they all are, but basically go in and print those out as one of these reports in here. And not finding it in here, but you can definitely just, when you go to view delivery tickets, you can actually even just print them right in from here. So this is really handy. Let's say if you are doing a lot of deliveries and you have been setting up these tickets first thing in the morning or last thing of the day prior to walking out, you could print delivery tickets either for the current day or the next day of, or even the whole week if you are only always pushing deliveries out, let's say a week or more. This will list out the deliveries that you're going to be responsible for that date range, and just clicking the print button down here will not only print basically the tickets themselves, but also kind of a summary of the tickets. So something to keep in mind there. Again, that's actually separate from kind of mutually exclusive to the delayed delivery concept. It can be very handy to use in conjunction with it, but it's not required. All right. Any questions, let me know. As far as upcoming webinars, we've kind of fleshed out the rest of the webinars for the month here. We may still have one or two surprise webinars that I'm working on still to come this month, but this coming either Thursday or Friday, I can't remember which it is. I believe it's Friday. We'll be doing a webinar on, and I'm got so many of them coming up that I can't remember what they all are. I believe this coming one is on paying invoices by credit card, paying accounts payable invoices by credit card. So if you are interested in that, definitely check that out. Let me tell you just the ones that I know are coming up. I don't remember exactly the date order. Obviously, you can check all this out on our website. In fact, let's do that. Let me just go ahead and open up a web browser here. Because that way, if you're curious, you can always be seeing exactly where we're going to check this out. So at our website at tritechretail.com, you can go into the member portal, and in member portal will be a link on the left-hand side to see the upcoming webinars. So if you've always been coming in and registering for these webinars via the emails and other types of communications that we're sending out, you can always see the upcoming schedule right here when you click sign up for webinars. You'll go ahead and choose the free webinars, and because that's all we're doing right now. And this exactly is the listing. So I was actually incorrect. This coming Friday, we're talking about taking advantage of accounts payable invoice discounts. So if you do get a discount for paying an AP invoice early and you want to make sure you cash in on that, definitely check out that webinar. You can see we've got a number of seats still available for that. Next week on Tuesday, we'll be doing a webinar all on price changes, doing those efficiently, taking advantage of the expanded auto pricing functions in version 12. We'll be checking out how all that gets set up. That following Thursday on the 21st, we'll be looking at paying invoice vendors with credit cards. So I was just 1 week off on that one. And then Memorial Week, Tuesday of after Memorial Day, if you are here in the States, we'll be taking a look at customer financing. So if you offer your customers to purchase products on financing through, let's say, Synchrony or other types of external banks, we'll be taking a look at some best practices with that. And then wrapping up the month, Friday the 29th, we're going to take a deep dive into the lesson scheduler. Since that did get such a big revamp, we're going to talk specifically about invoice options, how to work with makeups, and other little odds and ends and best practices with that. If you would like to check out some details on the scheduler ahead of that, as part of the member portal, when you go into the member portal and you go into the download section and you log in, and let's see if it remembers my login info. Of course not. So one guess my password here. In fact, I don't even know if I remember my own password. Let's see if I do. That's the password? No, it's not. Okay. I don't remember my own password. I'll have to look that up later. But when you go into the download section, right at the very top, there will be a little link that says for the latest V12 webinars, go here. And when you click on go here, that will take you not only to all of the webinars that I've been doing here, but also all of the webinars that I've been doing for version 12 as a whole. And some of those include webinars that I've done on the lesson scheduler. So if you want a little bit of a precursor or a warm up to the scheduler module, if you haven't checked that out yet, I encourage you to do so. I'm basically going to be building off of that one. So I'm not going to be going into really all of the nitty gritty of how it gets set up. I'm going to be looking more at how to expand on that. Like I said, the options of invoicing and how to work with makeups and things like that. So it was one of our suggested webinars, in fact. So thank you so much, Linda, if you're here. Again, thanks so much for attending these. We couldn't be doing this without you. The questions are always great. And if there's anything we can do for you, just give us a shout. If you want to make any other webinar suggestions, feel free to send me an email, training@tritechretail.com. I always entertain all webinar requests, especially if I can make this work for you. Then we'll definitely make it happen. So thanks everyone again, and I hope you make it a great day. Take care.